Tab O, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving the 7th Amendment to the lease agreement between the city of North Miami and Olita Partners, Inc., authorizing the city manager and city attorney to negotiate and execute the amendment, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. Tab O.
Yes. Do you have present?
Well, I wanted to just put something quickly on the record from my staff report, sir. This, as you all know, the 7th Amendment negotiation is in response to a couple of, I guess I'm going to refer to them as minor default issues that we needed to address with regards to the 7th Amendment, particularly the issue of the conveyance of the passive park areas that were already in the existing lease, addressing the status and go-forward plan with the LPO requirements that are in the lease. And as such, the city, and also to also address a request that was made, I guess, through the council from Councilman Galvin with regards to erecting a community center on the active park area that will be turned over by the developer. The city met with the developers, we negotiated, and through our briefings, we've explained to everyone what those, where we have, I guess, arrived with regards to those items. Very quickly, though, I wanted to make sure I put on the record with regards to the LPO requirement being removed. In the, I believe, the online version, it's still, in exchange for the $2 million payment, there was a portion that was supposed to be turned over to the city for our own affordable housing initiatives, and then there was a portion, actually in the one that's actually
It's not
online.
best that we discuss whatever
Yeah,
is posted
I will.
online,
Yeah.
and then we will do the amendment
So,
after.
so I just wanted to make it clear that the reference to the youth program, youth hiring program, should be referenced to the city's program and not the program that the developer.
No, we're gonna.
But I know there's some other items that they want to address, but
Yeah,
I'll yield
but
to the
when it comes to
developer.
those, it's us
Yeah,
to
with you
decide
guys.
what we wanna do
Absolutely,
with that
sir.
when we get it. Yes.
Evan Ross, on behalf of Olita Partners, better known as Sole Mia. I'm here with Camille Douglas, Senior Managing Director for
Can you
LaFrac.
say your address on
And,
that?
I'm sorry, 17301 Biscayne Boulevard, North Miami Beach. Here with Camille Douglas, Senior Managing Director from LaFrac, and Danny Salas, who is General Counsel for Sole Mia. We're not going to take a lot of time with the presentation. We're here to answer any questions, address anything that any of the council members need from us, and with that, I'll turn it back over.
Thank you very much, and now we're gonna open it to the public. Public hearing is, what tab we are?
Okay.
No, no.
Tab O.
Public hearing is open on tab O. Public hearing is open on tab O. Public hearing is now closed on tab O. And now, members of the dais. Councilman Galvin, do you want to say?
Sure. No, I just have a question regarding, obviously regarding the timeline for construction of the new community center.
It is, I'm going to it right now.
180
It's 100
days
days from-
following the city council approval of the
Of the
funding
budget.
for the community center.
Yeah.
So in regular person's language, when would that be?
Whenever you decided here.
Right. So,
If we say that tomorrow is gonna be after the closing,
Right,
the
so
one, after the closing, 180 days after our approval.
okay, so if
Of,
we,
of the budget for the project.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
approval
yeah,
of the
yeah,
budget,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So if this whole agreement closes in 45 days, we would still need to approve a budget after that?
Yes.
Yes, you would.
And who would drive when that budget would come before us?
You guys.
The administration
You
gonna
would
answer.
direct, I mean, if you want.
That's
as
when you're gonna
approval-
negotiate the price, the construction,
Right,
what
right,
you
right.
wanna see, and after that, we approve it, 180 days after that, they have to start.
If you want to take the suggestion through the mayor, to just give us the administration the directive now,
Thank you.
you know, after closing to, working with you all to develop a.
Yeah,
project
that's
budget.
what it, no, to start negotiation.
Right.
No, right after the closing, since it's a part of the agreement, that's when you got to engage in discussion about the cost and
And how we're
how
gonna
it
do
will
it.
be, the design, everything.
Right.
And then we're gonna approve the amount, and then they have 180 days to start the project.
Right, no, I'm cool if we're allowed to sort of start talking about that now while we
Oh,
close.
yeah,
Close
yeah.
in 45 days, and hopefully by then we know, and construction can start in 205 days,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
25 days.
Yeah,
So,
okay,
all right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
okay.
Yeah,
Councilman.
Mr. Attorney, we just had a few little minor tweaks, like releases.
Mr. Attorney, can you please come forward?
Like releases of deeds.
Oh, you're talking about the
I mean,
city
release
or?
of lease.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
our attorney.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry,
So-
sorry.
So
So-
I'm trusting that all.
Yeah,
that's
I just
been
spoke to
ironed
the
out.
attorney, excuse me. I spoke to the attorney earlier, and told him there were some minor technicalities that we have to take care of.
Okay.
Then none of them are major amendments.
How much, what's the total we're gonna be getting on this? We're gonna be getting 2.7 plus the 8, so we're getting 10.7?
No,
that-
you're mixing the items. This is
Okay.
the lease amendment.
the lease.
So this
This
is
is
not,
just the lease amendment. The only thing, the funding associated with this item is
The
2 million, contribution in replacement of the
Yeah.
LPO requirement, and,
The option to buy the 20,
That's
no,
the
no, no,
second
that's
one.
the
next.
community
That's the next.
center.
And the
Yeah.
community center. That's
Yes.
it. That's all that's here.
okay, so this 2 million we're getting goes.
And also
in-
the rent
So
participation.
what we're talking about in this item is just the
That's in
2
the next
million
item also.
that's going towards affordable housing?
Yes,
Okay, so did we, again, you were talking about budget, but we have to, do we include this income in our budget?
no,
Or is this needs a
no.
budget amendment to include this?
this was not included in our budget, so you will have eventually,
They're gonna have to do the adjustment because some of the money is a part of our budget anyway.
Okay. I'm gonna ask
no,
the same
none of
question.
this,
for
none of these proceeds are in our budget.
These are new revenue.
But when you're gonna come to the rent participation, at least we're.
That's the
That's a
next
different
item.
item.
That's the next
Okay.
item.
Oh,
Mr. Go ahead, go ahead. No, Councilwoman, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, may I? So my, what I,
Mr. Spring, you asked me.
anyway, Evan Ross, what I would like to see is, I know that for the LPO, the 2 million that is going to be, it's going to be transferred over for the affordable housing or whatever it is that we decide to do, that is over a period of 5 years. I'd like to see that that is provided immediately, well, during closing with the other, that's my, I guess, my request or my
request.
friendly amendment.
Mr.
Yeah, we're
Mayor,
gonna
if I
come
may.
with the amendment, late. No, now we are
Well,
doing
this is it.
discussion.
Well, it's
And
part
after
of
that,
Right, so what it is as it is right now, is that it would be, these funding would be spread out over 5 years. And as we all, most of us have campaigned on affordable housing, I think for the things that we're trying to achieve, a 5-year period would not necessarily help us in the way that we're trying to be aggressive about addressing those issues. So I'd like to see that the 5 years be expedited to our closing.
Okay. Are we done? Okay. Councilman Desiree.
No, go ahead.
No, we're gonna come with a
Oh, I
table
don't-
amendment.
This is
and-
the lease agreement, so I don't have any questions. I think it's the residential parcel, so I'm,
Okay,
it
you
is,
okay for the list?
yeah, she has one.
Yeah, we're gonna
one
do
over
that.
there, okay.
Okay. In the lease agreement, and we're going to shut down the LPO, and which was the community action plan in that lease agreement, and in exchange to $2 million. But in your proposal, you said 5 years, and I think I talked to you guys too, and we agree on 3 years.
Yes, that's correct. We're willing to make that adjustment if you want to make an amendment to the item to pay that money over 3 years rather than 5 years.
That means it's gonna be 3 years, 3 version.
Correct. The first payment would be made at closing,
That
and,
represent 33% of.
right, each payment would be equal. The first payment made at closing And then
The
future
second permit
payments.
at the beginning of the next fiscal
Can I, can
year.
I, can I clarify something,
That's my
Mr. Mayor?
proposal. Go ahead.
You guys keep referring to a closing. The closing is not associated with this item. It's associated with the next. I understand the timing,
Yeah.
but
I
you need to
understand,
clarify.
but the money, when the money should be,
Associated with the
So-
closing of the next item.
Correct.
Yes,
The
yes.
next item has a closing date associated with it.
Yeah.
The first payment would be made, then the additional payments would be made within the first quarter of each year
Okay.
for the following 2 years.
okay. And the Joe Celestine clear on it. Is another
I'm sorry, Mayor, can I ask a question?
thing. Mm-hmm.
Can you state again, when are the other two payments?
The first payment made at closing based on the item to follow. The future payments would be made during the first quarter of each year for the following 2 years.
First quarter calendar year,
Correct.
thank you.
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year, not calendar year,
Our
fiscal year.
fiscal.
First quarter of fiscal year.
That's fine.
Okay. That's been October 2nd, 2020.
Okay, so to be clear, we're going to get a payment at closing, which will take place in 45 days.
Yeah?
And then we can expect another payment at the end of this year.
Yes.
Okay, so there'll be two payments received
Within,
this year.
Yeah.
within the
Yeah.
first quarter of the fiscal year.
Fiscal year. Okay. And can I hear a motion on the lease agreement with the amendment?
So moved?
Madam
Second.
Clerk, are you there?
Madam Clerk is here.
No, if you're okay
Yes.
with what we,
I have
3
a-
years and,
Yes.
okay.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve the item at tab O with the amendments as stated on the record. The motion was seconded by Councilwoman Estimate Irvin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Tab P, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving an amendment to that certain agreement regarding residential parcel dated February 13, 2015, between the city of North Miami and Alita Partners, Inc., authorizing the city manager and city attorney to negotiate and execute the amendment, providing for an effective date and all other purposes. Tab P.
Again, we're here to answer any questions, address any issues, but we don't feel the need to make a presentation.
Okay. Yeah, you wanna say something?
No,
No? Huh?
Well,
Can you, for the public, can
Yes,
you
that's
just
what I
a
was gonna
quick- a
just
quick
put on the
overview?
record so that, for the public's, edification, this item is the first amendment to the residential parcel agreement that was entered into, back in 2015 with Olita Partners and the city. That agreement called for the tenant to have an option to purchase 75 acres at a prescribed dollar amount so that they could construct residential buildings within the development area. At this time, well, the tenant is exercising their remaining 20, which is not an issue associated with this item. However, the item prescribes that the tenant now absolutely close in 60 days. That's what's in the item that's presented. In addition, the tenant requested that we allow them to forward pay any potential future participation rent, and I say potential because it's based on them actually constructing in this area. We worked on a present value calculation of what that estimate would be based on a mix of condominiums and rental units, and came up with a number of $2.7 million. And finally, the tenant has requested the ability to swap 4.5 acres from the existing residential area into another area within the development as a commercial means of being able to develop mixed-use residential in that commercial area. The tenant has agreed to pay for the first 6 months of that option, $25,000 per acre for the option, and beyond 6 months, up to 1 year, $50,000 per acre. That is the item that is before you.
And Not yet. Wait, give me a quick say. A quick question. You got? Can you verify the previous sale and to making sure it was because you're talking about 75. I don't remember it was 55 acres last time. If it's verified that it's 55, it's not less than that. So
Right.
it's got to be more than 20.
No, it's 20. It is
was-
verified.
If I'm not mistaken, it was 54 point something.
It was approximately
Yeah,
55
5
acres.
acres.
I don't believe it was exactly 55
Exactly,
acres. This
54
is an
point,
additional
that's
20.
mean
Yeah.
20 point whatever it is to make it 75.
You're correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
okay.
Right, those numbers are rounded.
Okay. And go ahead.
Councilman Galvin, no?
No question
Okay,
for them.
quick question, no, because this is his district. Quick question, Mr. Manager, in addition to what we have, because I do have the memo, that you guys agreed to help out the senior foundation, the North Miami, senior program as well. Just want to put that on the record. Is that,
Not related to this item. I know we've had some discussions
so which
about
item is it?
well, not related to any specific item. I know we've had some discussions about things that are priority for everyone's constituents. As you know, we have a long track record of supporting city events,
Okay.
community organizations. I know we've had conversations specifically about the seniors and looking at ways that we can be helpful to the senior programming in the city and those kinds of initiatives. We certainly want to be helpful, but I don't want to create confusion that that's related to any specific item that you're voting on.
Gotcha.
No comment. I already made my comments previously.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's mean tonight we're doing the swap. Let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
And the second,
Oh, I'm
Go
so
ahead.
sorry, Mr.
yes, go
Mayor,
ahead.
I do have a question. In regards to the swap, I know you have up until 1 year. When do you intend on actually exercising it on?
We don't know exactly when we'll exercise it. The reason we needed that year period is we're constantly working to master plan the site to make sure that we're keeping up with market trends and developing what makes the most sense. So that year gives us enough time to be able to continue master planning and figuring out exactly what it is that makes the most sense to be able to execute that option on the swap.
And
Go ahead, Mr.
No,
Manager.
you
No,
still do.
I'm sorry, I just also want to highlight, so, and if the option is not utilized within a year, there are no more options, right? I just want to make that clear.
That's correct.
Because we are, I just want to make sure.
go ahead.
My quick question, if this particular item, so the item that will be coming back is after the first item related to that one, correct? That, once the budget, which
Like,
is the
What
previous to the first
oh yeah,
item.
yeah. You'll be bringing back I guess a project development budget that will
Okay.
be brought for full consideration before the board.
What happened?
He's asking about the budget
The budget related to the project, that's
What
all.
project?
Sorry, from
Oh, for the community center. Oh, okay. Yes.
Just the same question, how much did we include in our budget for this transaction? We had a big discussion on it, so it is coming to fruition, which is good.
wisely, we did not budget for this item.
We took it out?
Yes, we did.
Oh, okay. So we have a budget amendment and a discussion as to what we do with the money.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The money is just gonna go as a surplus, whatever. Okay. It doesn't have to come as a budget amendment.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
We just spend it, or we get?
What do you mean we just spend it?
Okay.
We're making the deal tonight, we'll figure out how to spend the money later.
Yeah, that's what it. And a question, Mr. Manager, and first of all, instead of 60 days, I would propose 45 days for closing. If not closed within 45 days, you have to come back and you agree with that plan, right?
Yes.
Yes. That's mean, Madam Clerk, oh, Madam Clerk, everywhere you see 60 days is gonna be 45 days. As I meant, no?
We'll take care of that, sir.
You will
That's-
take
that's-
care of that?
That's part of taking, yeah, that's part of the
Okay, the
agreement.
second, okay. And let me ask you a question. The rent participation, the 2.7, how did you calculate that number?
So, working with the developers, finance folks, we took a look at a development projection plan for the next, it was like 30 years. And there's a mix, I want to say, it turned out to be like 60-40, was it rental to condo? Yeah, 60-40 rental versus 40% condo. And the calculation of participation rent based on the delivery of those units over time. And I think it averaged about 200 units, delivery of 200 units a year for the next, 20, 30 years. So that's how we calculated it. And then we put a discount rate that I would say we argued over quite a bit, that ended up in this number. And if you want, I can share, actually, I can share that spreadsheet with you so you can see the mix.
Okay, understand that the participation rent that we are and doing now is only on the 75 acres.
That is correct.
Not on the rest of the.
Correct.
the
And
property.
so I'm clear, that's why I said future potential, because to the extent they don't build building X by a certain date or building Y by a certain date, the timing of that money would get extended.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That's in whatever it is it within the 75 acres?
Correct,
That's
correct,
the first
sir.
thing. And secondly, the swap. Can I be clear on that? What exactly we're doing, the 4.5 acres? You wanna swap?
What the swap does, it simply allows us to swap out 4.5 acres that's under the
From
current
that
plan.
75
Correct.
to any other
It,
space?
almost any other space on the site.
Okay.
Yes.
Except,
full
except for
Yeah, I know, the front,
the
Biscayne
front
Landing
parcel
and
at
then
150.
Biscayne.
Right.
That
That's why I
is
said almost
excluded.
any.
Okay.
Yeah, it allows us to swap for almost any acreage on the site.
The 4.5 is going to be residential only? Or can it
That's where I talked about the master planning. We don't know exactly what it will be yet. There are a number of different options, and we want to make sure we have the flexibility to build whatever makes the most sense on that site. So, for
Within
example,
what?
we've talked about mixed-use
Within
development.
how long?
I'm sorry, is your question?
Within how long to use, those 4.5?
We have 1 year to exercise the
the
option
swap.
to do the swap, right.
Okay.
Beyond that, what our actual building timeline is, I couldn't speak to. It's still to be determined.
And Mr. City Manager, in the event they don't swap within a year, what happened?
nothing. There is no option. They would have to come back to the board for any.
That's when you went back to
request. Yeah,
the
it would- yeah,
previous
right,
lease
right.
agreement. Okay. Mhm. And here's another section 2.
Oh, my God.
The mayor and the city council of the city of North Miami hereby authorize the city manager and the city attorney to do all things necessary, whatever it is, and in regards to the agreement, in accordance with the direction provided to city administration. But I don't like the language where you say without the necessary or further action by the mayor and the city council.
What are you reading?
Section 2, authorization of city manager and city attorney.
What is this?
The lease, the residential parcel agreement amendment, just the last. Yeah,
He's referring to the actual resolution itself.
yeah. Are we comfortable with that? That's mean if the agreement is the way it is, completely the way it is, you don't have to bring it before us if there is any change. But the way you said without, I give you direction, if there is any change?
Any changes that are agreed to tonight will be included in the agreement, and we'd move forward to the closing.
I understand that. But if there's any change, you're gonna bring it before us.
There shouldn't be any changes after this, but if there are any changes, we'd come back.
Okay, no, it's because you said without the necessary of further action.
Well, this
by me.
assumes that after tonight, all the discussions.
All
made and we
discussion
know
are
what
made
we're
and
doing we're
everything
gonna move
is
forward.
the
Yes,
way
sir.
it's stated, okay. But if it's, let's say it's beyond 45 days, you're gonna have to bring it before us, right?
That wouldn't be in accordance with whatever agreement
Okay,
that we signed,
okay,
so we'd have to come
okay.
back.
Okay, I'm clear. Can I hear a motion on the item?
So moved.
Second,
Public hea, oh, we didn't open public hearing.
You didn't on this one.
I'll
Oh, sorry,
withdraw
sorry.
my motion so that
Sorry.
we can have.
Public hearing is open on the residential parcel agreement amendment, is tab B. Sorry.
My first, Jim Garrett, 11610 North Bay Shore Drive. I understand we obligated to execute this agreement under the original lease that we
We're
had.
not. The only thing is the 20 acres we're obligated.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. They had an option to buy that. That's what I
Yes,
understood, Mr.
yes.
Mayor. My only contention is this, is that the money that we're getting from this gets earmarked to the Parks and Recreation Department, and we have 3 priorities. Number 1, finish Cagney Park. It's been up there now for almost 8 years, unfinished. Cagney Park. Number 2, the stadium. The stands have not been put up. We got a new field, but there's no stands. When is that going to be put up? So Norland, North Miami Beach, ATM, and North Miami can have a home field for football. Number three, that we have a park and a community center in Solomia. Those are the 3 items. I wish in the future, if we have any other future land sales or option agreements, that we earmark the money towards park and recreation and then library. Those are the 2 departments in our city that needs improvement. The library staff is doing a great job handling them kids up there during the day. But there any other that will I recommend? Thank you.
Public hearing still open.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. On this item, the original agreement was to sell them residential land for residential use. They've now extracted 4.5 acres of land for a determined, yet to be determined use, possibly mixed use, possibly commercial use, possible commercial use to sell off to a another car dealership or hospital or whatever they choose to do. Is the manager's numbers based on the value of land at the residential price, is what we've been hearing about the flow chart and so forth? Is it based upon that? And part of the original agreement was never that 4.5 acres were going to be used for their commercial component. The other thing is, it seems like there was a lot of communications going between council members, negotiations and asking of certain items, yet I didn't hear tonight whether or not the city attorney had to ask council members who had conversations with the developer discussing this item on the agenda, or if it even needed to be disclosed of who had these conversations about how and what this agreement was going to be. Who had the context. I'm not sure if it applies to this particular item, but if it does, I think it should be. And then, Madam Councilmember Mary, I apologize that you were totally ignored when you wanted to make an amendment about reducing it to a 1-year payment or right away. You were just totally ignored by the rest of the council to address that item. And again, why is the city playing on the previous item? Why are we playing banker for a multi-billion-dollar project and not getting our money at one point in time right up in the front? We've had problems with multi-billion-dollar developers in the past who promised us money, but we didn't get it because we gave them time to play the game in the market. When you do these type of agreements in the future, especially with the Solomia project, which we really want to be successful, they have the means, and we have such needs, and you're selling off this piecemeal. $200,000 or a year doesn't mean anything. It's when you have that substance of money at one time that you can actually make things happen. And for future reference, we must have a community center out there at that development. It's the only district that doesn't have a community center of any means compared to the other districts. But that's another discussion another time. But again, 4.5 acres, is it being valued as commercial property that they could very easily go off and sell? Or is it gonna be residential, mixed use? It's totally different value. The other thing is, was there communications and between the council members and this, just so everybody is above board and transparent? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
William Prevotel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. I'd ask at this time that the council be somewhat wary. Some years back, not that long ago, we were persuaded to sell 50 acres of land for approximately $20 million, approximately $400,000 an acre, to build high-rise housing. At the same time we closed on that, far inferior land, the Dean's Gold site, which has across from a gas station, across from railroad tracks, inland there's an electrical substation on 2.2 acres, god-awful piece of land. That sold for $10 million per acre. Our land, which was so far better, sold for 1/25 the price. 1/25 the price. And in that deal, to give them that, somehow we agreed to say, hey, and before you leave, before we ink this, let's add another 10 or 20 acres to this so you can get it at whatever price it is, whenever you want, however it is, wherever on the site it is. Would you ever do that with your actual own property, your own personal possessions? And yet that's what we did, so callously. I would just ask that maybe we take some more time to consider this, and not get taken advantage for the second, third, fourth, fifth, or however many times it's been with this group. We all want this location to succeed. We desperately want this to succeed. And isn't it heartbreaking that when you go over there, because there is no real master plan, which is an oxymoron in a way with these people, that we show up there and there's Costco. What could have been a park or some nice central space. Now these new construction is looking down on the roof and the parking area and the gas station of Costco. Is that something we planned for in the beginning? Probably not. And it keeps on going downhill from there. As I've said before, this is a fountain of disappointment, and I ask that you do everything possible to put the brakes on, get more for the city, for the council, and for the constituents of our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public hearing is now closed. Do you have a question?
I'll put my motion to
Wait.
approve back on the table, unless there's further council discussion.
Go ahead.
I had a, never mind regarding my question.
The only concern I have is the 4.5 acre swap. Mr. City Manager, let's see, we close in 45 days, right? Right after they exercise the option to swap, what they will give the city, what the city will get.
We would get,
What are we, okay, first of all, what are we getting for the swap?
25,000 per acre.
Right.
So that's 113,000 immediately. If they swapped immediately,
If they
113,000.
if they swap within 180 days?
Yes,
Whatever after, what happened after?
double that,
It's $50,000?
225.
That 4.5 acres is residential, right?
Yes,
And when they're gonna do the swap, it can be turned to commercial or mixed use.
Actually, sir, I'd like the clarification on that
Mhm.
myself, because my understanding is that it should be residential. This was a residential parcel agreement.
Yes.
So that's my
Are we
understanding.
swapping residential for residential? That's my question.
My understanding is
No,
that.
can you let the attorney answer it on record,
Oh.
please?
You want our attorney or
Yes,
your
your
attorney?
attorney.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. The intention is for it to be residential or mixed use. Daniel Salas, the General Counsel for Solomia. Address is 15055 Biscayne Boulevard.
The 4.5? Mm-hmm.
Yes, our intention is for it to be residential or mixed use, with a majority of it being residential, so we can have a mixed use community type project with retail below or retail associated with the residential.
The only concern we have now, we feel like the 4.5 swap, and they're paying 400,000 for it, and they wanna swap it later.
May I ask a
And I think the 25,000 is kind of low. Yes, go ahead.
What I had asked is, you said it's your intention to, with the property you're swapping, to make it residential or mixed use. So can we put that language in the agreement?
We have no issue with that.
Okay.
Actually,
Wait, let her finish.
No, that was my question that I had asked.
If you, okay. Now,
right, so how long will it take for you to figure out what it is that you'd like to do with this master plan? Because you're saying you don't know. What is the estimation time that you think it will take you to
the
figure that
only
out?
concern we have, the 4.5 acres, right?
It would
What
take
we are trying to figure out, the 4.5 acres should not be sold for 400,000 by giving you that option. That's the only thing we are discussing now.
No, let me clarify something. The 4.5 is within the 20. You've already agreed to the purchase price of that.
Yes.
So that's 400,000 an acre. By allowing for the option, they're providing you an additional payment on top of the 400,000 for the option of being able to swap it at a later date not exceeding 1 year's time from the actual execution.
After 1 year, what's gonna happen?
Nothing. They can't swap anymore.
So they have a year to make
Right,
up their
but-
mind?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, but I have an issue with the fact that, what are you swapping this for? We need to see what the benefit is to us.
Can we
Why
delay
can't we have an
this?
idea? You know, that's
And
mine.
And I think, understand that they wanna buy that's their land. They're just gonna make a deal with you.
Right.
Yeah.
So
The only
if you're
thing we can
making a
discuss
deal, I
is
need to
price.
understand that's fine. What am I dealing? What's the deal? Outside of a swap, why? What are you
I mean,
building? How long
Cal-
is gonna take to build?
Well,
Like,
I can't answer how long and their plan. I can answer the basic question is, you're basically swapping residential for residential, that in essence.
You
but
see,
there's a
mixed
discussion
use-
that,
Well, mixed use has residential
Commercial.
in it with with commercial pieces
So
at
you-
the
no, you
first
can
floor.
do 2 bedroom
Right.
on a 10-story
Right.
commercial.
but
That's
the
considered mixed use.
but the 2.7 million was calculated for residential, correct?
Correct, and they
So
would.
if they do mixed use, then what
No,
is
no,
that?
no,
calculated?
no,
No,
the
no, no,
no. It would still be the same because the residential is I think is the highest.
Highest
part-
and best
part-
use.
The highest
The
and best use.
2.7, we're getting it at closing too.
Yes, you're getting
Yeah,
that at closing.
yeah.
Also, so I heard a discussion, Mayor, that you are comfortable with doing the, so I'm going to the LPO issue. So you're comfortable, Mayor, doing it?
That was done.
That was done?
Yeah,
That was
That
in the
was
last.
the
that
previous
was the
one.
last item.
Oops,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
Yeah.
I thought, all the back and forth,
This is the swapping now.
I apologize.
That's when for the other $2 million, we get one at closing and the other one in October, the first quarter of October, the first quarter of fiscal year 2020. That's when before December.
Can I ask a question? Do you
Yes,
need-
it's the swap. That's the only.
Do we need more time, or no, I know you're saying us. Do we need more time, or are we ready to move forward, or?
Can we move
Or can
forward
we-
without the swap?
No, the swap is important to our ability to master plan the
master.
site in accordance with market trends. Look, for us, we want to build what makes the most sense, And what makes the most sense for us ultimately is what will be the most successful for the city. The swap allows us the opportunity to maximize what we can do on the site to make it the best project it can possibly be.
And before when we were negotiating and that swap, and for disclosure, and former Mayor Kevin Burns want us to disclose, yes, I meet with everybody for throughout the year. It's an ongoing project. Every day I spoke with the lobbies, the developer, the attorney, and I discussed that with the city manager. That's when it's an ongoing project.
Can
for
I help
the
you,
city.
Mayor?
Yes.
We've been working on this for over a year. So
Yes. Yes.
Yes, there's been
Multiple.
tons of meetings.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
You,
And
are we all disclosing, or you just?
if
No,
you
this is
you
not
don't
a
have
quasi-judicial.
to, it's not a
That's what I thought.
quasi-judicial. I'm just,
I'm like,
I just say
what's-
something, yeah. And yeah, I was telling you that when we were discussing about the swap, we came with a number before. City manager, we come with a price tag, one lump sum, instead of doing it 25,000
Yeah,
and
the-
before
the-
180 days.
So-
What was the calculation?
So that was a different, the construct of that was very different. At that time, the discussion was about having a swap option available for 5 years.
Okay.
And then we set on, well, I set on a price of $300,000
Additional.
additional per acre.
That's mean
For the
the
fi-
4.5 will be 700,000 per acre,
right.
with 5 years options.
With 5 years of option. We went back and forth and.
We will prefer that.
For what? I'm so sorry.
I think it's important to note that
What-
we had a number of iterations of this agreement throughout our negotiations, and as we moved through them, there was give and take on both sides. I think we've come to an agreement that benefits both the
There's
city
a give and
and
take. Where's
Solimia.
the give and take?
There was lots of give and take
Where is
along
that?
the way about timing of payments, about the structure of the agreement. I also think it's important to point out, under the original agreement that this 20 acres stems from, we had the ability to swap at no cost. That option ran out because we didn't exercise it, but going back, we had the ability to do that at no cost. So this is not, the swap is not a new concept, it's not something that's new for the project. What we're doing here is recreating a portion of that option, because that option was more than 4.5 acres.
He's confusing me.
The agreement that was executed approximately 5 years ago, that allowed us to exercise the option to buy this 20 acres, that old agreement gave us a time period where we could do a swap at no cost. That period ran out. So all we're doing here is reinstituting the swap on a much smaller scale. We don't have the ability to swap nearly as much. And in doing that, providing the city, in the event that we exercise that option, with $25,000 an acre if we do it within 6 months, or $50,000 an acre if we do it beyond 6 months and within a year.
Thank you very much. Mr. City Manager, a question. And how much gonna be the check at closing? Without this, the
other
swap,
side.
the
Yeah,
swap.
that's
All right, so
can
that,
be
we're
the-
talking about, for this agreement, $10.7 million.
No,
Yes.
it's more than that, no.
No, this is, I'm just referring to the residential
You're talking about
parcel
8 million.
agreement.
Wait, you're talking
Yes.
about 8 million,
And
plus the
2.7.
2.7,
That's 10.7.
plus the 800,000 for the,
That's, you're asking about both.
oh,
both
no,
combined
total,
payments.
I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah,
total, at
yeah.
closing, yeah, plus the 800,000, right?
What, 800,000?
That's the portion of the LPO payment that will be made.
Okay.
Right. Just to be clear, I believe it's $666,666 and 66 or 67
It's
cents.
800,000, the first payment. You wanna take it? Are you okay with that? 800,000, making it how much? 11.5? Plus the swap, right?
When and if it is exercised.
Yes.
Sorry, when and if it is exercised.
I think Yeah, I think we're mixing items here.
That's what I
we're,
thought too.
yeah, I think we're
It's
mixing
two
items in a
items,
way that,
okay? When we were
Right.
discussing the first item, okay, the check for the 800,000, okay, you gotta have that check from the previous resolution that you have to end over at closing.
right,
At the same time.
we're in full support of what was just passed on the last item. We're in
No.
total agreement on what was just passed with the prior item.
And for the.
When we're gonna, okay, when we're gonna
And
have the
that-
check
The
for
first payment would come at closing of this item,
That's
which
what
would
I
be.
said.
Right.
That's when we're gonna have two checks for a total of $11.5
No,
million, right?
I believe it's 11.3 and change, somewhere between
If-
11.3
if
and
it's
11.4.
Exactly, if it's 800,000, it's gonna be 11.5.
Mr. Mayor.
so Miss,
10.7,
Yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, what I believe that Mr. Ross is saying is that the agreement that we just made is that it's going to be divided, the 2 million is going to be over a period of 3
We
years.
understand.
So,
No,
is,
not
and
3
this is,
years. I
Yes.
said the first in 3 payment.
right,
But I
so
want the
we
fact-
didn't identify
Oh.
what that funding was.
Would
So
be.
the assumption is that it's going to be 66,000 point whatever
Okay,
it
okay,
is.
whatever it is. Okay, that's
So-
fine with me. Yeah.
Okay,
That's
but
fine.
you're,
That's
you're
correct.
quoting
It's
a
3
800.
equal installments.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine, that's fine.
Okay.
But it's gonna be at closing.
The first payment will come at closing, that's
Okay,
correct.
that's mean 11.3 something.
Correct.
That's what it is.
I
yeah.
believe that number's accurate.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm so confused relating to this item because obviously, Mr. Mayor, you have, you have been in touch with the developer and the manager, relating to the item. Are we all clear? Because I'm a little confused, so I probably need the manager again to clarify what we're doing, because my suggestion is, would we?
You are, and I warned of this earlier.
Yeah,
We're mixing the two items.
Exactly, so that's what,
The item that is before you, right now, for consideration, is the residential parcel agreement, which
Includes.
including the original agreement, and if you accept tonight this amendment, the payment of the immediate payment of the
Residential agreement.
of the participation rent, which is $2.7 million. You add the 8 million, which is 400,000 per acre for the 20 acres plus point whatever the number is. Rounded to 8 million. So $8 million plus 2.7 is
Okay.
10.7, which is
Okay.
the number that I put on
Okay, okay.
previously.
For this one, okay.
This
yeah.
item,
Okay,
With
this one is
this, yeah, not,
10.7.
this
yeah.
item.
so my concern, which I thought we were clear, was the swap as well, that we are discussing, but that's the main core of this item. It's my understanding, right, Mr. Ross?
I wouldn't
the swap.
I wouldn't necessarily call it the core, but it's a part of this
So
item.
because his concern was the swap and mine was also, because my thing is the first time I discussed the item for the first time was earlier last week, I think, when we met on the 7th. And then I think I met with you and the attorney 2 days later. So,
The 8th.
yes, but I didn't have the item until the 9th, I think, whatever that Thursday was, last Thursday. So it was a lot to digest. And then your memo was very clarifying, but that was the day before yesterday, 2 days, yesterday. So it was yesterday I got the memo, or the day before yesterday.
Actually, it was actually in my staff report.
Oh, in
The
the
previous
memo?
Thursday, yeah.
The previous
Previous
memo?
Thursday.
But the one that you sent out,
I just
yes.
cleared
That's
it up
what
a
I'm
little bit,
saying.
yeah, yeah.
So that email was either yesterday at 2:30, whichever the case is. So there's a lot of if everyone is okay, I'm okay. I'm not necessarily there, but I'm okay with the particular item. Or is it something that we need more time, or because it's the it seems there's
No,
one common
it's just because I
thing.
was mixing thing. Okay, now for this one is 10.7, right? That's how much we're getting.
That's correct.
At the same time, we're gonna have another check for the 600.
Correct.
Whatever it is.
From the
which is
prior item.
Exactly.
Correct.
Which is a total of 11 to something.
Correct.
That's what it is, right? Can I motion on the item
So
with
moved.
the amendment,
So moved.
Madam Clerk?
What-
The amendment 45
Yeah,
days.
the amendment was 45 days.
So moved.
45
Second.
days. Let me see, making sure it's 45 days for closing. Yes.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve the item at tab P with the stated amendment. The motion was seconded by Councilwoman Keys. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote.
Thank you very much. I really do want to thank the mayor, council, the manager, his staff, and the city attorney and his staff for working through this with us. And we're very appreciative we were able to get it done.
Prior to moving on to legislative matters, Vice Mayor Desilme, what is your vote on tab L?
What is tab L? We all the way in Q. What is L? The software,
Proposed
yes,
yes?
yes.
That's your vote?
Yes, the software proposal, right?
Yes.
That is
Yes, the
correct.
hardware and software, yes.
Okay, thank
fine.
you. Tab Q, proposed ordinance, first reading of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances entitled Finance at Article 3, Division 3, entitled Source Selection and Contract Formation, specifically at Section 7-151 entitled Local Business Preference and Local Hiring Requirements in City Contracts to update the standards for the award local business preference, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and for an effective date. Tab Q.
Thank you. Mayor, Council, this is an ordinance. We've had some discussions regarding the city's local preference ordinance. Several of you have spoken to us about potentially making this a more stricter requirement. The mayor asked us, I believe it was sometime last December, to go back and take a look at our local preference ordinance and see if we can look at some other cities and perhaps make it a little bit stricter. So what we've done is we've made some changes. There's 3 changes to the ordinance. First, it requires that the certificate of use be issued at least 12 months prior to the city's issuance of a solicitation. So in other words, the vendor or who's ever responded to the solicitation would have had to have a certificate of use 1 year before the solicitation goes out. The second requirement is that there's a physical address within the city in an area zoned to conduct such business on a day-to-day basis. And so virtual offices by themselves would not be acceptable. You'd actually have to have a physical office within the city. And then all of the requirements, there has to be a certified in writing, providing all documentation that support that the ordinance is being complied with. Originally in the former, if you approve it, originally in the former ordinance, you were required to satisfy at least 2 of the following requirements. We're making this stricter by requiring that you follow all 3 of these requirements. And that's pretty much it. And if you agree, then we ask that you approve this ordinance.
And I have a quick amendment I would like to make on this resolution after stated that from which the vendor operate or perform business on a day-to-day basis, and he has at least 10% of his total workforce residing in the city. What I want to add to that, it's in case someone doesn't live in the city, doesn't reside in the city, the business is not located in the city, but they can subcontract another business in the city if the subcontract is at least 20%. Let me explain you what. Let's say someone has a $10 million contract. We don't have a business in the city capable of doing a contract like that. But in order to get the local preference, if that business subcontract 10%, at least $2 million of that $10 million contract, they can benefit from the local preference. That's mean either or. That's makes sense. Instead of 10%, we are making it 20%. Not the hiring. I'm talking about subcontract. That's what we wanna.
basically, sir, what you're adding is you would be adding a fourth requirement.
That's fine.
That's a fourth
Either
requirement.
or, no, not a fourth, either
Well,
or.
it would be a fourth requirement, and then it would be either you have a physical address or you do the other.
Yes.
I couldn't make them both.
Yes, okay, it's either or. Are we understand?
This, Mr. Mayor, is it open public, is this an item? for
No, you
public?
can make the discussion. After that, we're gonna open it to the
Yeah,
public.
this is the first time I saw it when it came out in reference to, so, Mr. Attorney, what are you striking? You making it stricter or you making it easier? Which one?
This is to make it stricter, sir.
Oh,
And make
this
it
would-
clear.
It would make it stricter.
Clear
and clear.
Yes.
Okay, because I'm not clear, so, all right, so, right now, the way it is what, how is it read?
The ordinance right now is actually 12 months.
This is a business.
So right now, we're adding that, actually, sorry, there should have been something stricken out, and I don't see it.
Yeah, that's
stricken
what
out.
I'm looking
So
at.
hold on.
In the local business mean. Is he here? I thought I saw him.
Sleeping.
He's on
not
Facebook.
sleeping.
I see why. Okay, so right now, as it reads right now, it has a business located in the city with a current business tax receipt issued prior to the city's issuance of solicitation. So in other words, right now, as long as you have the business tax receipt prior to the issuance of the solicitation, then you're okay. So in other words, if the solicitation comes out in May, but you had your business tax receipt in January, then you're fine right now. And then right now, there's a requirement that you have 10% of your total workforce residing in the city, or you subcontract 10% of the contractual amount with
Okay.
subcontractors. So that,
Now I
that
wanna make
requirement
it
you're adding,
20%.
you're putting that back in and making it 20%.
Yes.
Quick question, Mr. Mayor. My understanding.
Not the workforce, I'm talking about the business. Yeah. Not
Right.
the workforce.
The sub,
Yeah.
I see. So you're not the workforce, you want
Yeah,
the
the
10%
business.
contractual amount
Yes.
to go up to 20%.
Yes.
And that would be a fourth requirement.
Yes.
so you would leave the business as 10.
20.
It's
Subcontract.
subcontract is 20, so
No, now we make it 20.
now, no,
Now
I
it's
know, now
10.
it's 10.
Yeah,
But
we wanna
you
make
see
it
what I'm
20.
saying?
Yeah, now
Now
it's
it's
10.
And the
He's
business
asking
will-
that it be 20.
20
Yes.
for the subcontract only, or the business will get the subcontract to,
So
Clarify.
okay, so
To
what,
qualify.
what we proffered was
Mhm.
we were removing the 10% total workforce requirement, and we were removing the 10% contractual amount requirement. The mayor is amending that to say, put back in the 10% contractual amount. So that would be a fourth
Businesses.
requirement of the ordinance. So we'd be basically putting back the option to have subcontracts up to 20% of
The
the
business.
contract amount.
okay. My quick question, in reference to that, the physical location of the business was one of the,
It's still there.
it's still there, but that
We
needed
changed
to
it to
clarify that
making
where
sure
it
it's
needs to
12
be a
months.
business.
Yes.
You know, like not a PO box or a mailbox or something in that nature.
That's actually, that language already exists in our
Already
code,
exists.
yes.
Okay, so this is making it stricter according to you,
Yes.
okay, to what I'm saying. Is that what
And
it is,
increase
Mr.
it to
Attorney?
20%.
That's
Yes,
what,
it would be stricter, yes, sir.
okay. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to trying to understand.
Wait, can I ask
Yes.
one question? Would you be willing to amend this to only give a preference of 5% of the valuation points or 5% of the total price as opposed to 10, which is in, it's on page 3 of 4,
That's
3B.
right.
What happens is local preference is important, but we also might be knocking out some really qualified people because someone employs 10%.
No, not 10%, not employer, I say
20%.
subcontract 20%.
Subcontract or but what I'm saying
You're
is
going down to section
3B.
3B, preference to local businesses. And right now, a business that's a local business gets a 10% of the total evaluation
No.
or 10% of total price. So
Or we
she's-
only
so
reduce
she-
the
she wants
price to
reduce it
5%?
I'm
Well,
not,
so what we've got is we've got people bidding, qualified people bidding, and on the way certain things meet, if everybody's pretty close and someone's down below, that extra 10% knocks our qualified people out of the game.
I mean, here,
So I'd like it a
May I
little bit
weigh
less.
in? I'm the maker, I'm the original dude that sponsored this local preference thing in 1999. It's one of my first pieces of legislation. It's worked pretty well for 21 years. I would just want to leave it at 10%.
And I agree.
you know,
No.
And
I agree. I want to
Wanna keep
encourage.
it 20, oh,
No, I'm
10%
talking
for
about
the
the
price, yeah, yeah,
section,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I want to
I would-
encourage
I would-
that
yeah.
we use our small business, our
So
minority
everybody,
businesses
since
have
we're
an
gonna have big
opportunity.
contract,
Yeah.
and then we wanna allow small business to have a piece
Yes.
of
It
that.
is called local preference.
Yes.
Exactly. That's
Yes,
why
I
if we
wanna
don't
leave
have
it
a
at
big
10.
business, at
As a
least
matter
they
of fact,
can.
I don't mind making it 15%.
Thank you very much, and now public hearing is open on the item.
Bob Pashon, 13005 Coronado Terrace. I like the changes to the structure of the local preference because we give clarity and we preserve the notion of what is a local business. When we have people that exist only here as a post office box, that's not a local business. That wasn't the idea behind Mr. Galvin's legislation in 1999, I don't think.
but
The
that's been-
10% bonus, though, I think is problematic. The Gelden experience we had most recently clarified that to me in that we have a proposed bidder who wants the business, wants to provide a service to the city, and when he was scored and rated and ranked, he was last. But because at the time he was awarded the 10% local preference business, he got the business. So what I think has happened is we because of this, it's weighted too much. So that because he exists locally, he's gonna leapfrog much more qualified people, or more qualified people, according to the rating committee, and that doesn't do the residents any good. I mean, we're getting an inferior service, but the guy does live in town, or he's got a business in town, and I'm not sure that's what we're after. You want to recognize the fact that he's there, and I think that's laudable, but I think we want to recognize it proportionate to what we want to get back from the bidder. Thank you.